Hi, everyone.
Hey, Mike. Great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Sorry, the audio chunked up a bit. Say that again.
I said thank you for having me.
Oh, yes. Hey, Ash.
Hey, Dan. Hey, Mike.
Huh.
Mike, I did see your email. I'll get back to you today. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, no problem. That's fun. Yeah, next week's not great because I'm at OSS North America. So unless you happen to be there, it probably makes sense to push that a week. I don't think there's any urgency, but it's good to meet you. Pour my tea and pull the stuff out of the way. I'm British after all.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon.
Hey, nice to see you.
You can see my new road bike in the back. Rather pleased with it. It's an e-bike. So basically, it's all the fun stuff, but it's still quite light and it's lovely to ride. But if there's any hills and it's windy, you just press the button. It's all good. And it helps you. It's like someone basically pushing, when you're a kid pushing behind the saddle, it kind of feels like that. And I was always a bit of a fair weather cyclist, and it's kind of maybe I don't need to sort of dress up, and I also put hybrid pedals on, so I can either just use normal shoes or proper cleat stuff. And it's just encouraged me to do more cycling, so it's really good. Hi, Eric.
Hi, Mike. Good to see you.
You.
We'll get underway in just a sec here. I'm going to clean up my windows and get the agenda displayed. It's 16 here, so that's good. Right, you should be seeing the.
Yep, we are.
Yeah. Great. Think we're ready to roll, Kurt?
I believe so.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everybody to the May the 4th Be With You edition of the CCC's Technical Advisory Council. It's a fun day for all of us. We have sort of a mixed complexity agenda here with a lot of it needing to be front loaded in the first hour for certain people's schedules. So we're going to do what we can for that. But I want to first remind everybody that we are an open and welcoming community. Everybody is encouraged to participate, and in a few minutes we'll encourage you to introduce yourself if you haven't been here before. We operate under a code of conduct that is available in any of our repositories. So if you have any questions about that, you can take a look and ask anybody on the TAC. We also abide by the Linux Foundation's antitrust policy. If you're not familiar with that, you can go to the linuxfoundation.org/antitrust-policy. and read more about that fun material. Part of being in an open source community is, of course, contributions. So if you want to make little contributions today that are helpful, we keep accurate meeting minutes. And if you go to the link that is on the screen, or what is no doubt already been put into chat, or soon will be, you can help Kurt keep track of what we discussed today. Of paramount importance is anything that we vote on, and any other information is helpful as we go. So I mentioned we're sort of front loaded on the meeting today, so I'm going to try to keep the pace going. Kafir's got a hard stop at the end of the first hour, and he's one of our main presenters. And we also have a discussion on progressing Gramming. We've touched on this in a few of the previous meetings, and there's a formal proposal now written up that will look at the requirements that we set forth in the governance repo. But we will get started like we always do with roll call and introducing new attendees, and then one special introduction after that, and then we'll approve minutes. Any additions or corrections to this agenda? Two other points on this is we were looking at getting a co-chair from the attestation SIG to present today. It looks like that will work best for people in our next meeting. And then we also had a tentative tech talk scheduled, but I think we did not close the loop with the presenter there. So that is also likely to be delayed. So might be a slightly shorter meeting today. All right, let's head into roll call here. So do we have Giuseppe on the line?
I don't see Giuseppe. Let's see. We have Thomas. We have Fear.
Okay, so I just need to readjust my window here so I can see the attendees. So no Giuseppe. What about Thomas?
I'm here.
Yes.
Thomas, thanks for joining. Eric Northup or Shankaran? Nope. Kafir? Hi, Kafir. Thanks for joining. Howard?
Yep.
Hi, Howard.
Hey.
I am here. Dave? Hey, Dave. And Lily. Do we have Lily?
No, but I'm here. Hi.
Ah,
Hey, Josh. Yes.
backing up Lily. Perfect.
Yeah.
So I think that brings us to 6 of 8, if my counting was correct.
That's what I have. So we definitely have quorum.
Excellent. Great to see everybody here today. So it's important that we reach quorum so that we're able to make decisions on anything that needs to be formally decided upon. But everybody is welcome to contribute here, whether you are a voting member or not. And so if you have not introduced yourself at least twice, you're encouraged to introduce yourself to the community here. Just feel free to pop off of mute and let us know who you are, where you're joining from, either physically or what company. And we're always interested in what your particular confidential computing area is.
Yeah, so I'm new. I'm Tore. I am one of the maintainers of Keylime, so I mainly work on remote attestation. To be exact, TPM-based remote attestation. Where I'm coming from is that we want to secure consumer devices. In our case, it's mainly university exam systems. And now, because I'm still a student, I picked up as one of my interests confidential computing in my master thesis, and that's why I'm here.
Wonderful. It's great to have you, Thor. And we'll be looking forward to a talk from Keylime in the coming weeks here.
Yep.
Hi, I'm John Ferlin. I'm from Red Hat. I
engineering manager here. Been working with Sergio Lopez, who was on there for Verdi, as well as Tyler and Yash on their engineering manager. We're doing obviously confidential computing here for a couple of years, and that's been my space to watch over for the virtualization team.
That's great. And it was John was your first name?
Yes, John.
I'm going to challenge you on that, John. You've been doing confidential computing for at least 4 or 5 years, but hey, details.
It feels like, yeah, you're right, probably 4 or 5 years.
Wonderful. Who would like to go next?
Yes,
I could do that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I'm a part of John's team. I'm Tyler. I also work at Red Hat. I'm a part of John's team, and I'm one of the maintainers in the Verdi organization as well.
Nice to have you on, Tyler.
Thank you.
Yes, I can go. Yeah, I'm Ettore Di Giacinto. I'm head of open source at Spectre Cloud, and yeah, we are looking forward to contribute to the confidential computing consortium. And actually, we are using some pieces inside one of our open source project, which is Kairos, which is a Meta Linux distribution.
Cool. So when you say you're using some pieces, would that be pieces of any of the projects we have hosted here, or just direct?
Grandmine, we are because we are enabling basically confidential workloads inside Kubernetes.
Wonderful. Always love to see adoption of the projects. Anybody else who hasn't had a chance to introduce themselves a couple times yet?
Yeah, hi. I'm Jörg Rödel. I joined from SUSE. I'm the confidential computing architect at SUSE, and I mainly work on the low-level parts, hardware enablement parts of confidential computing. I'm the maintainer of the Coconut SVSM project for AMD SCV, and I organize the confidential computing microconference at Linux Plumbers.
Nice to have you again, Jörg. All right. Anybody else? I think I recognize everybody. If you haven't had a chance and you want to interrupt me later, feel free to go ahead. We're going to move on to one more introduction or reintroduction. Mike Purcell is rejoining us with a new hat on. So Mike, I'll turn it over to you to introduce your role and what you'll be doing here.
Yeah, hi folks, Mike Purcell. I have been around the Confidential Computing Consortium since it began, in that I was co-founder of the NARTS project, which was the very first project to be accepted in. We were around the foundation. I was part of Red Hat at the time. We then did a startup called Profian, which aimed to commercialize NARTS. Sadly, we decided at the beginning of this year to close that down. But I have just like a week and a half ago or so started as executive director for the CCC. It's a part-time role, and it is about doing the stuff that the CCC wishes it could do but can't, because either the time isn't there, or because members are associated with particular companies or organizations. And so there's a number of things that we want to be doing with me, making sure we have better visibility at conferences, maybe recruiting more members, recruiting new projects, working out how projects can work together and stuff like that. I'm just putting together a survey which should go to all members to get a feel for what the members want and some of the priorities and things like that. But I've also I've been very much involved with writing lots of the things like the white papers and working with people like Eric on the work he put in on the most recent one. And yeah, so I'm really pleased to be here. I'll be at OSS North America next week in Vancouver. If any of you are there, it would be absolutely fantastic to meet up. Yeah, I mean, lots of you know me already, but it's great to catch up with people who don't yet know me. So yeah, please get in touch. And I think that one of the things we want to do, Dan was going to do, is talk about the sort of 5 tasks for the TAC and see how I can help out with those and what are good fits, etc. So nice to be here.
Wonderful. We're really excited to have Mike joining us. When we kicked the year off, we already had some plans in place about things we were going to do differently in 2023. And one of those was adopting an idea of an executive director, which is pretty common to open source projects, especially in the Linux Foundation. And it's exactly what Mike said, all those areas to help with our advocacy, whether at conferences or directly. And one of the areas that we haven't had a chance to talk about, but I imagine that Mike will be really effective in, is helping us grow our portfolio. So that is one of the 5 objectives we have for the TAC this year. And that's going to be in a couple dimensions. One is actually the number of projects, and then the other is the maturity and adoption of those projects. We've got a topic on that today. So welcome once again, Mike.
Thank you. I should say I'm based in the UK, but I will be over, traveling a fair amount to support conferences and stuff, and hope to meet people when I'm traveling to conferences. Even if they're not at the conference, I'll be making, if there are members around, I'll try and meet up with them. So yeah, thank you.
Yep, and we couldn't have really handpicked a better candidate for the role, with somebody who's come from within the organization and had so much experience in the area. So with that, we'll move back into regular business. So we have to approve minutes on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis for each of the last sessions. I've had an opportunity to review and approve the minutes. Lily made some suggested edits, which Kurt has already merged. I believe those are resolved, but if anybody had corrections on that, or if Yash, you were carrying any additional messages, feel free to speak up. The main things that we did were to approve the last minutes, and then we had the discussion on the first of the 5 TAC objectives, which was the cross-project coordination. So I will let you read through the details of that yourself for sake of time, if you haven't already. But Kafir is on, so we'll have the 4th item, I think, of the 5 to talk about today, continuing to stay on this cadence of working through directed objectives. And then we again talked about some of the requests from Grammy and their interest in a website, and we kind of talked about, well, what we would do with funding, and Grammy had not previously approached Progression because there wasn't an incentive to do so. So we are going to try to make that an incentive, and so one of the topics that we'll be talking about today is progressing Grammy. So with that, are there any additions or corrections to the meeting minutes as recorded? See Dave's hand is up.
Yeah, I filed 2 comments right before the meeting. Looks like you may have loaded the page long enough before that they don't show up. One is that the recordings link doesn't work for me. I don't know if that's the wrong link or if it's just me. So I would like some confirmation as to know whether that should be corrected or not.
Yeah, I just tried it. I just tried it. It does not work for me either. I'm not sure what got broken there, but I'll fix that.
Okay, so that part is wrong. And then down below, I had a question. If you scroll down, Dan, you can see right there, it says Lily to follow up, and there's no action item there. And my question is, should that be another action?
I can certainly make it that way. Yeah. Remembering the conversation, I believe she was, let's see. Oh yeah, this is Confidential Computing Summit. Oh, this was the conversation about, yeah, we were talking about having project meetings and she was, yeah, that probably should be in action. I can change that.
Okay, those are my only two comments. The rest looks fine.
Hey, good catches, Dave. And the way that we're going to try to organize the action items going forward is instead of just having sort of a general pool of action items that we constantly rehash, things like this will just be slotted into the into the sort of KPIs for the top level objective that it supports.
And
so in this
Kurt,
case, when Lily comes,
sorry.
she'll follow up on that point. Go ahead, Dave.
So I did go to the CCC YouTube channel, and I looked at like playlists there when I was looking to see if the link was wrong, or whatever, and I couldn't find any of the TAC meeting recordings on the YouTube channel. So I don't know if they're hidden somewhere or what. So I'd pass that on.
Yeah, so they should be at this URL. So we just probably lost a character somewhere in the.
Yeah, I'm looking at the URL and it's it's identical, but yeah, there must be some formatting that happened there. I'll get that changed. Let's see. What is the difference?
Yeah, we'll let people sort that out for sake of time offline. Are people comfortable progressing with a vote on the minutes, or would we like to see those corrections made in the minutes before we vote on them?
So Dan, I did have a question as well. So I was added to the code owners file about 2 weeks ago, but when these minutes were created, I was not listed as one of the approvers. I'm in the CCC GitHub organization, but it didn't add me, so I can't approve.
So I would like to propose, if it's a question for Kurt, maybe, if it's something that you can make the updates during the minutes, like during a tech talk or something like that, then I would like to propose we call the vote at the end of the call. Because we'll still have quorum even after Kafir drops, I think. And so unless Kafir has any objections, then I propose just coming back to this at the end.
No objections.
Okay, great. Oh, incidentally, do we have anybody on from Grameen?
Yes, me. And Mona.
Okay, great. It's you during the roll call. Okay, I see everybody on there now. Wonderful. Okay, so we'll come back with a vote maybe at the end of the time, and it sounded like Kafir was pre-voting in approval. Is that right? Yep, see a thumbs up. Okay, so we will come back to that in a bit. And Yash, yeah, I don't know what's going on with GitHub. I thought we had you added, and Kurt and I did have a little bit of back and forth about trying to debug that. And I'm just not quite sure what's going on, but we will get that sorted out.
Yeah, there's an error in that file. Let's see. Yeah, the code owners, there's an error that's saying, let's see, Fear and Yash are both not, I'm not sure what the problem there is, but they're saying they're unknown owners, and they're both in they're both added. Let's see.
Kafir, since we have you on, does this look like the right handle for you?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I've checked both of the handles. They're both correct. And they both have right access. So I'm not sure what's the matter with this file. It's complaining about that, and yeah. I can sort this out.
Well, Kafir or Yash, if you're having any existential crises, problems, we'll try to get that handled offline. All right, moving us along here into the Grameen progression proposal. Back when Grameen did their update, they kind of recognized that they might be ready to move on, but there wasn't necessarily a reason to. So with there potentially being a reason to, but even if there's not, we wanted to exercise the mechanisms that we have defined. So there is a formally want to emphasize formally, but there is a write-up here on this Google Docs link. And I will drop that into chat. Thanks, Dave, for the typo. Let me get this toolbar out of the way. So that is actually not a typo. One of the things that was discovered as the team looked at the stages is that it seemed that not only does Grameen satisfy the incubation requirements, but further that they satisfy the graduation requirements.
Well, the problem is we've never actually agreed on the graduation requirements. So you can't say whether they meet it or not, because as Mike will vouch for, in the very first meeting, we agreed to punt on the discussion of the whole graduation requirements, and we only actually voted on the other ones. I reported this in a previous meeting. So we can't approve anything for graduation without first approving a graduation stage to begin with.
So I recall a part of that discussion, but we do have that in the progression policy.
Correct. That's for recorded purposes, but we've never actually voted on those. And there were actually feedback from people that didn't think that those were the correct criteria. And so unless you've budgeted time for that, I would propose we vote on the incubation stage and push off until later any discussion and voting until graduation stage, because that will be a longer discussion. We can't just vote Grameen into it, is what I'm saying, procedurally. Even if all the people on the call here think that it meets the currently phrased ones, we'd first have to have a discussion of whether those are the correct requirements for graduation, go through a policy approval, and I expect there to be some discussion because there were comments filed back in 2019 that have not yet been discussed. I don't remember what they are. We'd have to dig them up. So that's why I'm saying do that in a future meeting.
Okay.
Now, it's perfectly fine if Mona or whoever wants to report on how Grameen meets the currently phrased ones, right? But I'm saying the vote for graduation stage, my opinion is we'd have to push that off to a future meeting. But Mike, let me know if your recollection is different.
Yeah, no, we have the same recollection. Yeah. I'd love to see Grameen move on, but I think moving on to what is an important thing to get right. So, sorry, folks.
I wasn't there for the initial discussions, but I do know for other people, the reason all that material is there is it came and was copied from the CNCF, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, and the terms they use for graduation versus incubation versus sandbox. So I think people are wondering why there's all this text when they weren't agreed to. It was a copy from another Linux Foundation environment, and it might be worth talking about what's needed for graduation, but that's the history, at least as I looked back into it. I hadn't realized that graduation did have ticks against it that need to be resolved.
So I also have a question, which is: do we have a list of benefits associated with graduation?
So
no. If we have a full agenda, because all of our presenters are actually here, then I'm proposing that we push the graduation stage requirements discussion off another meeting just so we can get through the agenda. If you think we'll have spare time, then yeah, let's do it now. Because I just know Kafir is going to have to drop off at the top of the hour, right? So from what you said.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So I will accept that suggestion. Let's focus on the incubation and then come back to graduation as we can. So the only thing that throws a wrinkle into is the growth plan, which was sort of a foggy area of the requirements to begin with. But I guess what I would like to suggest for this proposal is that, given that we've got the documentation of how Grameen believes it will satisfy graduation, or that if graduation is not fully defined, then we cannot fully define a growth plan that will target graduation, then I would like to suggest that that requirement is fulfilled or obviated.
We do have a specific document on what the growth plan requires, which is that link.
Mhm.
And so as long as you can argue, and I have not reviewed it, but as long as you can argue that the text that you have in the document there for our undergraduation stage actually meets these requirements, then that makes sense to me.
Okay, great. Okay, the next point on here is looking for production adoption by 2 independent organizations. And so if we go down to the production use area, we've got documentation of well more than 2. Some of those are documented on the current version of the website with the intent that additional tracking would move to the new website. I think that the maintainers for Grameen said that they would prefer not to try to intermingle technical documentation and this sort of documentation. So that's one of the reasons they're not currently all listed there.
Yeah, and I think I will add, this is all we know. And like Dan said, right now, we encourage anyone who's using Grameen to sort of notify us and to be added to our GitHub page, but we don't, I think more and more we look at it, this was one of the reasons we said, hey, we need a proper website. That's where this information belongs. Because sometimes, yeah, so anyway, so that's roughly the reason not everybody's listed there. And there may be more. I would say these are the ones we are aware of.
Okay, any questions on the second bullet? Okay, the third one is substantial in the opinion of the TAC, ongoing flow of commits and merged contributions. So statistics were pulled. Statistics were pulled from the main Grameen repo. There's a few other repositories for community, like a contrib repo, so like vendor related stuff, as well as the GSC project is, I believe, a separate repository. GSC is the component that will containerize.
Yes.
Are there other repos that are of note?
There's one repo with less tested examples, which are kind of similar to Contrib, but like the examples we are not testing regularly.
Okay.
Examples are tested at every release, not on every commit. Yeah.
Okay. So the activity that's here is a subset of the total activity. So are there any questions about this level of activity or concerns that it does not meet a substantial level?
Do we also want to assess the quality of the commits? Is it just code cleanups, small renames, or substantial new features?
Yeah, partly means whether partly depends on whether we feel that substantial means solely in terms of numbers or substantive as well. I mean, that's the sort of thing that we might want to be adding to the definition, frankly. Substantial and substantive would be probably a useful.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just claim by any definition of substantive, it is, because for one, we have practically rewritten most of the code for the old Graphene project, added several new features. So yes, I mean, if I don't know
I think you're like to meet
yeah.
it. I don't think it's going to be a problem. It's just about making sure that we have the right definition.
Sure.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
No, I don't know how to. What would you like to see for that criteria?
Yeah, so I didn't hear a request for more information from Grameen as much as we probably want to detail this requirement better in the future, so that when it's less clear that a project satisfies the substantive portion of the intent, that there's better guidance. Is that a fair characterization, Mike?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. All right, the next thing is sort of conjoined. It's the level of community participation. So I think there wasn't a way to, let's see what we have for that. Yeah, so that's a similar sort of statistic, how you document community participation. So I guess the thing there is less about the commits and more about the number of committers. And so the uniqueness of the committers is defined by what the name was applied to the sign off. And then the domains was just inferred from the email address that was part of that sign off. So it is, I guess I would say, up to 43 unique committers and 11 unique companies.
I would, again, this is one of those ones which becomes awkward in that I know that lots of people who use GitHub, myself included, don't use their company as the domain for which they register their GitHub. I'm not saying this is a problem, but if there's any other evidence available that there is at least 11 different companies, I think that would be useful.
Yeah, so it's not at least 11, it is up to 11, because it's just like what you're saying, that it could be half that number, but there's at least what can be directly evidenced from the commit log.
And again, if the project itself is able to say, even if it's just that from their own knowledge that there's more than that, then that's, I think, good evidence as well. This is the sort of thing that I wouldn't want people to be saying, oh, we need this number, and then gaming the system. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's just being aware of those sorts of things.
Yeah, there's no explicit, I think that was maybe recognized by the original authors or whatever the TAC may have done with the requirement, because it's worded in a subjective way.
Yeah.
There's not a specific number. So there's numbers provided to help substantiate this, but Mona or Michal, would you like to say anything about the diversity of company participation from your understanding?
Oh, yeah, no, I would say I was also trying to get we have a lot more users than committers, so that we were not able to collect. As you see, the number of issues are coming from a lot of different people as or discussions. That number actually doesn't show up there. With respect to committers, what we have here, Intel.
I tried to find an easy way to graph all the different contributors, like including issues and discussions. But it seems that GitHub API is somehow broken. Like the same script which I ran previously doesn't work anymore, and I didn't have time to fix it.
Yeah. But that is just to say, then this is the I guess the lower baseline. We have much healthier community of users, much more than 11 committers, I guess. Anything else, Michal, you want to add?
I know what exactly are you asking about?
No, Dan was saying if there was anything else you wanted to add beyond what's on the slide. No, I think we're good.
Okay. And then the last requirement for incubation is demonstrating that there's that the project is invested in growing a healthy community, in the sense of making sure that they adhere to diversity and inclusion policies. And there again, it's sort of difficult to measure these things, but there was an active discussion that I found in the commit logs about the code of conduct. So the community has not just adopted a COC, but had some discussion about what that means. And I wasn't able to find in the TAC meeting minutes, but I know that we had last year a lot of discussion from the project mentors across all the projects about adopting the Linux Foundations, or not adopting, but taking the Linux Foundations open source diversity and inclusion course. And that course is meant to make people more cognizant of implicit biases that affect commits and things like that.
And I would heartily recommend people taking it. I took it again. I've taken it 3 times now. I think I took it again on taking the job, and it is nothing is perfect, but it's just a reminder and a nudge, if nothing else. So please do take that.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the maintainers took it, yeah.
Great.
This will not affect my vote in any way, but it would also be great if either code of conduct.rst or contributing.rst actually included this as a recommendation for contributors, meaning taking the training. I don't know that it's on either of those RSTs right now. That would be a good addition, in my opinion.
It's not. We can add that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would give the same suggestion to all projects on the call, by the way, for
Absolutely.
anybody else listening. So
I think it's actually in our list, in our recommended guidelines and projects anyway, but I agree.
It is just something for mentors to look for and say, hey, it'd be good if it's documented somewhere. Like here where it says the procedure for adding and removing maintainers at the bottom. Ask them to take the blah 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 training would be an example of a bullet there.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be a nice addition. Okay, so that is the end of the requirements for incubation. And as discussed, we're going to push off the graduation discussion for now.
I did have a comment that I can point out now, because it may be that people want to amend the graduation requirements, which, as was observed, the text I think was originally copied from CNCF, but there is open discussions of things that people don't agree with. But I will note that the graduation requirement at the bottom here, Grameen does not currently appear to meet. That's the one that says no more than 1/3 of the governing body is affiliated with the same company. The link that's provided there shows that 4/5 of the Grameen governing body are affiliated with Intel, and that's why it fills that requirement. And so you should just, each person should decide whether they think that the requirement should be changed because it's never been voted on. Maybe that is the wrong requirement and Grameen would be fine, or does Grameen not yet meet the graduation stage? And I bring this up because this has also been brought up around the Open Enclave project and its growth plan for getting to graduation. So this has been a discussion over the past 2 years. And so that is one of the discussions that should be pushed off, but I just want to highlight it now because I want people to think about that, especially if you think that Grameen is ready for graduation, then that is an important discussion to have in a future meeting. So
I think the question should be also like what exactly this means, because for us, I'm from Invisible Things Lab, and we are paid currently by Intel, but also sometimes by other companies. And we basically have funding to maintain Grameen. And how does this count? As a separate company or as Intel? Because we are
it's a great question,
but we are like working on our own. Like, I mean, we also
it's a great question, but even if
from Intel, for example.
No, that's a great question, but even if Invisible Things Lab was counted separately from Intel, it would still be 3 out of 8 and 3 out of 8, which is still more than 1/3, right? And so if you added a 9th person to the maintainers, which was not from either Intel nor Invisible Things Lab, then Grameen would actually, by that point, meet the requirement if you argued that Invisible Things Lab was separate from Intel. But I'm saying that's a style of discussion we need to have, and why first we have to decide whether 1/3 is in fact the right requirement or not. So.
Yeah, and we can have more discussion on that in the future. Since we're down to about 15 minutes and get to Kafir's topic, I will ask for a vote at this time to move Grameen to incubation. So this feels like the sort of thing where we actually need to take a roll call vote. Did we get Thomas by chance?
Yes.
No Thomas. Okay. So Kafir?
Yeah, I support.
Howard?
Yeah.
Yes. I vote yes. Dave?
Absolutely, yes.
Yash?
Yes.
Okay, so that was a unanimous vote of those present.
And Thomas was here and said yes as well.
Eric, I said yes.
Yes, but I don't
thank
think he heard you.
No, I didn't. I don't get to see quite all of the participants, and you kind of scrolled off the edge of the screen for me. Sorry about that. Yeah, that makes more sense with the roll call that we took earlier. Okay, so unanimous of those present, and Kurt, you were able to catch all of those names on the votes.
Yes, I will record that.
All right, well, congratulations to Grammy.
Thank you, everyone. We'll get a flashy
Thanks.
website now.
Yeah. All right, so I would like to have more celebration for that, but we're pressed on time, so I am going to jump to, where did I go in the slides here? Jumped a little too far ahead. So we've got Kafir on for a little bit further. There we go. Sorry about that. So one of the 5 goals is about getting more recognition of confidential computing in the ecosystem. And Kafir, along with Eric Northup and Giuseppe, are on this category of tasks. So Kafir's made himself available here. So I'll let you take it from here, Kafir.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. First, thank you for accommodating my calendar, and I'm sorry I have to drop in 15 minutes. And this is not a presentation, this is actually an open discussion. This is a topic that I deeply care about, right? How to drive adoption and to educate the market about the benefits and the limitations of confidential computing technologies. First, let me share maybe a story, an anecdotal story. My PM showed me the other day. He went to RSA conference like 2 weeks ago. I'm sure many folks here on the call have also been there. And on the expo level, there was a booth by Fortanix, I believe. And there was like a gathering of 12 people. And the presenter sort of asked, all right, so who here heard about confidential computing? And out of those 12 people, 2 people raised their hand. And I suspect one of them was my PM. So let's say one person raised their hand. So we obviously have a gap here in education, market education, and this is a security conference, right? It's not just a random tech conference. So I think we all acknowledge that there is a gap, and there are things that we can do to maybe raise awareness. I can talk a bit about the things that I plan on doing on my side as a tech lead on the Google Cloud. I don't know if you noticed, we recently published a white paper together with Intel on TDX security audit. And this is a good demonstration of how we talk about the limitations and capabilities and benefits of confidential computing. So white papers and security audits is one of them. We're also doing a lot of publishing a lot of blog posts on confidential computing. We recently GA'd Confidential Space, which is our cloud enclave solution. And we have a whole series of blog posts, technical blog posts on that. And of course, we have a bunch of talks lined up. We gave a talk at the OC3, and I believe we plan on talking at the Confidential Computing Summit. So with that, I believe we can make, I don't know if significant difference, but we can make a difference. I have other ideas, and I would love to get your feedback about this.
Kafir, this is absolutely
yes.
One of the areas where I should be helping, and where we need to work together, and I really want to get involved. So please count me in any conversations, because this is something I care about hugely as well. Very, very much.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you. So the next maybe idea was, all right, we really need not only to talk about confidential computing, but really bring that and to meet customers where they are, right? If we really want to drive adoption, we need to meet customers where they are. And one way to do this is not only by building this portfolio of frameworks, I believe, but also building confidential computing features into existing well-maintained projects and open source frameworks. So I'm hoping we can also support and fund some of that work, right? So for instance, what if we had confidential computing support for, I don't know, HashiCorp Vault or Envoy for workload identities? I think we can also try to meet the audience, our target audience, which are security engineers, security architects, risk officers, DevOps engineers. We can also go to their conferences, not just, we shouldn't be tied to just security conferences, but we should also go to generic DevOps conferences or generic container-based conferences and talk about confidential computing and how it can help them solve their problems where they already are, right? Where they use the existing frameworks, where they are going to existing conferences.
Here?
Yes.
My name is Ofer. I'm from Anjuna. We met in the past, and we're talking from time to time, and we all share the same, challenges. We've also been in RSA, and first I can say that again, it's after 2 years of conferences, let's say, we still see that maybe 5% of the people that we talk with have a clue about confidential computing. Some of them today may have heard about that, but please remind me what it is, where in reality they don't know much about it, and most of them are not. So we are still in the education phase, and we're trying to figure out how to do that. Regarding what you mentioned about Vault, we and other products here, other companies here provide a Vault that runs in a secure enclave in the different CCC technologies. But what we've seen from the vendors themselves, Vault is HashiCorp, is that they are a little bit reluctant to publish that, because in a way, we show that Vault, for example, is not secure enough if it's not running in an enclave, because you can dump the master key from the memory, and Vault's whole claim is that they provide this security solution. So they are reluctant to cooperate and say, yes, our solution is not secure enough without secure enclave. So we've seen that from multiple customers. When we've been in RSA, I think that one of the challenges of our technology is that it's not a product, but rather an enabling technology. And when you go to RSA, people know that they need, let's say, an API security tool because they know about that problem, and they know that they need some risk scoring management system. And you've seen hundreds of those solutions in RSA, but they don't say we need confidential computing. It's a problem. It's an inherent problem to their holistic solution. So that's where maybe the challenge is.
May I add something to this, which is that firstly, Outreach is also very aware of this, and we should definitely be working with our colleagues in Outreach, and both folks from Fortanix and Anjuna, I think, spoke at the Outreach meeting yesterday on a very similar vein. Another thing I would say is that one of the useful things about having an executive director, someone who is not officially affiliated with any of the members, is that I could get up and say these things without being seen as tainted by a product or by a particular company, and be able to make the general case for the importance of this without being seen as pushing a particular implementation or a particular product or a particular approach even. And that's where I want to work with the TAC to come up with materials that I can do that, which everyone agrees further the technical as well as the marketing aims of the members, because it's the members I'm working for, obviously, in such a way that it will do this outbound education. It will move that 5% up to 20% and then 50% and whatever it will be. So again, this is another way which I really hope I can do that. So I put in 3 different talks for OSS EU, for instance, and we're looking at doing other talks, and that's one way of doing it. But I can work on other materials as well, on white papers and those sorts of things, on the technical and non-technical, and I'm very keen to do that with you folks.
Sounds good. We'll sync on that. And to Ophir's point, I think this is very important that when we position confidential computing, we are not we can tell that its benefits without saying other products are inferior or not secure, right? We can talk about having a smaller TCP. We can talk about strong code identity. We can talk about an enabler for multi-party compute. But I think it's very important that we do not dismiss existing solutions.
I fully agreed.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're saying that. I think part of what he's saying is that if other companies start pushing confidential computing in association with their products, they are saying sort of implicitly that their stuff isn't good enough. Even if we're not saying it, there's an implicit, realization and admission that, well, why do you need the stuff? But if your stuff's good enough as it is, well, it's not good enough, and that is the problem that we face here.
Exactly.
Dan, any other topics or points you'd like to cover here?
Yeah, so
I had two questions on the measured by, because I think the goal is awesome and I like the discussion so far. My questions are just on the 2 bullets under as measured by, and I don't know, maybe there's other dots that are that people have in mind. The first one is as worded, there's not a way to measure that per se, and so I'm just curious if people have ideas on how to actually measure that first bullet as far as the promotion aspect. If there maybe the outreach committee or somebody actually has good metrics that they could use there that we could reference. So that's my comment on the first one, is if we can figure out some metric or two to measure how good we're doing at promotion. But I'm guessing the outreach committee is probably better at us than measuring. My second one is a clarifying question. When you said the survey paper across technologies, when you say technologies, do you mean things like homomorphic encryption and multi-party computation and confidential computing, or did you mean technologies inside confidential computing like SGX, Trust Zone, or what do you mean by across technologies? My question.
So I think Dan added this bullet. Dan?
Yeah, so Kfir did a nice list of things that Google is working on. And one of the things that we want to do with our subcommittees here is figure out, well, what does the CCC contribute? Certainly what our member companies contribute into this conversation is essential. We want to have some goals that the TAC is working towards. And that might be, we go to our own companies and ask for these kind of collateral to be built. But we want to get to some goals. And so with very little thought, I'd put some draft text on there for goals that we could approach. They're certainly not worded ideally or measurably. So, Kfir, I don't know if you had ideas about goals that we as a community in the CCC should be working towards for this topic.
Beyond the talks and the papers. No, nothing comes to mind. Maybe Mike, do you have any overarching ideas that we can do at the CCC level?
I think this is something I want to talk with folks about. I don't have strong views at this point, and I want to talk with a variety of folks. And I think, again, I can act as a mobile person between the different committees. I've got the time to do that. I know that people don't have the time to attend all the committees. So let's start working on this and see what we can do.
Yeah.
I think my only comments on the notion of the survey paper, since I don't know what specifically somebody else might have had in mind, but if it was things like strengths and weaknesses of homomorphic encryption versus confidential computing versus MPC and so on, we go into that a little bit in the deep dive, the TAC white paper they have right now. If this is just an extension of that, then sure. The weaknesses point is it's getting consensus on things when you're talking about weaknesses is something that may take a while, but that one, given that we do have consensus on the deep dive white paper that we have right now, then that is potentially, if there's additional things to say there, then that could be interesting. If that was trying to do strengths and weaknesses across vendor implementations like SGX and Truststone and so on, then I'm currently thinking we should try to stay clear of that. Like in the terminology white paper that Eric was the editor of, there we try to talk about the main techniques, memory isolation and so on, since we don't take any position on vendor technologies other than letting them self-assert. And so that's why I was hoping it was maybe the former, but if it was the latter, then it would be maybe techniques that vendors use, like, memory isolation and so on, the things that are in the diagram and the terminology white paper, rather than actual, vendor implementations.
Yeah. Makes sense, and pass one to that. I'm also wondering if we can also not just talk about the technology, but also talk about use cases and talk about like customer adoption. So maybe we can highlight some customers that adopt conventional computing, make it talk about that on the CCC page. Talk about, hey, if you're a customer in this vertical, in this industry, and you have this problem, say, how do you do privacy preserving ML training? This is how this company uses conventional computing technologies to solve their problem. So maybe we can, at the CCC level, talk about like use cases and tie technology to people and to customers.
Yeah, although some of that will fall more under the outreach committee's purview,
Outreach.
and we would be the reviewer, just because the outreach white paper is the one that covered use cases, and so I think they see that as part of their purview. So this is a fine goal for the CCC. It just means that we may have more of a reviewer role than an authoring role.
Sounds good. Yeah, I was wondering the difference between this education OKR and the outreach program. I'm sorry, I have to drop. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Looking forward to working with you.
Yeah, thanks, Derek. This is great.
Cheers. Bye.
So one of the things that Kafir mentioned there was the Google Project Zero paper that came out recently, and I think there's an intent that he come in and do a tech talk about that, but we can close the loop with him on that later. All right, so I think that brings us to well, actually, before I move away from this, were there any other suggested key results that that anybody wanted captured in the minutes? Thanks, Howard.
Hey, Dan, I don't know if you, sorry, I wasn't present the whole discussion here. Did you guys cover like sort of working with regulatory bodies and those sort of things as one of the goals for the TAC? Because I think one is we can try and convince these customers that they need confidential computing for certain use cases, but if they're required by the I guess regulations, then that's just much easier sell, because typically they just have all these problems, or they're just willing to trust the providers, and they have that's what we run into. So there has to be, and I know most of the companies are sort of looking at it, but okay, you said you do have it here.
Yeah, so we were a little bit crunched there, so I skipped over what I would have wanted to do, which is to remind everybody of the 5 areas that we're covering. The one that you're touching on is how do we interface with NIST and other bodies, and so that's item number 3 here, and that is largely delegated out to the GRC SIG that Mark Novak is running. So absolutely important, absolutely covered. A lot of these
absolutely another area where I want to be helping.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so there's a lot of overlap between each of these 5, and also between the TAC and outreach and board. So what we want to get to with these discussions is what specifically is it that the TAC is going to be working on, and that's something that we need this topic area for to make some progress on, despite the very substantive things that Kafir brought up. One of the next ones that we'll need to check in on is the one that Nick and I offered to lead, which is what more we can be doing with growing diverse and inclusive communities here. Okay, so we now have, if we've still got our contributors from the VertTE project on,
So Dan, I noticed that Howard just dropped. I wonder if you want to, since thanks Kurt for updating the minutes, if you want to call that vote before we lose any other voters.
Oh, thank you for the reminder, Dave. Yes, so let's go back up to the approval of minutes. So is there anybody objecting to the minutes? And anybody abstaining from the minutes? Okay, so the remainder then are approving of the minutes. See nods on the cameras, so the minutes of April 20th are approved. Thanks, Dave. Okay, and switching back to our tech talk of the day. Who from the group will be presenting? Because I can turn off the share here.
I will be. Sergio Pasquale wasn't able to make it today, so I'll be standing in his place. I'm Tyler Finelli.
Okay, just update this here, and I will stop sharing to let you be able to present.
Sure. So I was just going to share our, 1 second, please. So I was just sharing our website and giving a background of what the Verti organization is, what its goals are. It's a joint project right now, started by developers from Red Hat and AMD, although we're not specifically tied to any architectures. Our main goal is to build libraries, command line tools, and things like that to ease the use of confidential computing within many different projects. So the Verti organization, it describes itself as an open community dedicated to trying to ease the building of confidential computing. So I'm Tyler Finelli. I'm also going to be introducing Larry Dewey today. He's also part of it. And I'll just explain some of the projects that we do. So we have the Sev Rust library, which can be used in many different, it's used in many different projects such as libkrun hypervisor, enclave containers. That's basically just a general abstraction layer over the SEV, the AMD SEV environment. No matter what a project's goals are, they can use this to offload their SEV work for booting and encrypting confidential VMs, wherever that be. So that's some of the one of the system libraries that we offer. We also offer a number of command line tools that can assist in the administration of provisioning a confidential computing system. We also authored the KBS protocol, co-authored it with the Confidential Containers Project for attesting confidential systems when you're looking to test and prove that you are confidential actually. So our main goal is, we've seen, although there's been a number of confidential systems such that you have virtual machines, you have confidential containers, you have confidential workloads, all of these have different implementations and requirements, yet they all require some tools that are generalized, such as attestation. No matter if you're a virtual machine, a container, or just a workload, you'd like to attest your system. We're looking to build some of the tools that would help in this. And we're not exactly tied to one specific hypervisor trying to build confidential systems or any platform for running confidential systems. We're more looking to build the tools to make that possible. That's where some of our libraries come in, and when you're actually running these systems, where some of our command line tools can come in. Also, we've focused on attestation because that's not tied to a specific system or any type of platform to boot confidential. So that's a few of our tools, and I can pass it off to Larry for a bit. And Larry's from AMD. He can talk a bit about what we're building as well.
Yeah, thank you. Let me turn my camera on. Sorry about that.
Hey, Larry, nice to see you.
Good to see you, Dan. So my name is Larry Dewey. I, like Tyler was saying, work for AMD, and I've been working a lot with Tyler and the other folks in Verti to help contribute to the AMD side of things. There are 3 people on my team who are actively contributing and who are working on that. But we, with that being said, I also sit on the steering committee with Dan Middleton for the Confidential Containers organization. And so we are really interested, and this is a library and set of tools that are very interesting for confidential containers as well. And it's already being consumed there. So, but yeah, it's a wonderful project. It's been really fun to work with Tyler to come up with these solutions, and just want to echo that, you know, the way that this is being built, that there's a really excellent opportunity for all of the different architectures to, you know, to be able to get involved and to contribute. And that's again, the aim of the project is to make sure that we can make this work for all platforms and really ease the barrier to entry for confidential computing to help with that. Because I know that, you know, people hear about it and there's a lot of education ongoing, and it would be really nice to say, hey, this is a really good way to get started, and it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, I think the main goal, as Larry touched on, is making it easier to develop confidential systems. So like I said before, with our libraries that can kind of interacting with different firmware devices can kind of abstract that and make it much easier. Or when it comes to administering a system, some of our command line tools. So that is the main goal of making it easier to run confidential workloads or confidential virtualization in general, I could say, to ease that barrier of entry and to kind of try to give some standard way of between architectures, between the, you know, with whatever an architecture has for its differences, trying to generalize as much as possible and make it as easy as possible. That's the main goal of our project, and not tied to one specific platform for running hypervisors or one specific architecture for running confidential computing.
Do you have some examples along that line of thought?
So I wasn't able to prepare as much since I was told at the last minute. I would like to prepare.
No worries. I don't want to put you on the spot for any question, but yeah, as we're going, if you've got some ideas about some of the cross architectural stuff, that's
so something like if you take something that we co-authored, such as the key broker service protocol. I'm sure that's been talked about here before, the KBS protocol. We manage the KBS types crate, which is used for, which specifies the types used to implement that protocol. Am I correct in assuming that there is at least a background knowledge of KBS here?
I have one because I straddle both projects, but I might be unique in that regard.
Okay, so in broad strokes purposes, the KBS protocol is looking to a kind of an implementation of something of a way for a confidential client to communicate with a attestation server for attestation purposes. You can see down below we have KBS types. If you'd like to go online and check that out, you can. We also the reference KBS server. Different attestation servers can define what's, they can use that protocol, however, they can define what's, how they use that protocol, such as what kind of attestation evidence you're going to give when you're attesting, how you're requesting your attestation report or attestation quote for your measurements or what, something like that. Yet this is not tied to a specific architecture. This is not tied to AMD, SEV, not tied to Intel TDX, ARM, or anything like that. But they all can be used for testing using this protocol.
Yeah,
that's
so
the example. Sorry.
Yeah, so no, you're fine. I just wanted to expound on that. So the general idea again is to abstract away a lot of the platform or architecture specific pieces, and then to kind of put this brokerage service in between the attester and the person who's looking to get their machine attested. So it provides that generic uniform behavior between the different architectures and protocols to make sure that, you know, you can receive regardless of whether this is on, ARM, whether this is on AMD, whether it's on Intel, potentially even RISC-V, depending on, architectures that are going to be contributing, that there's a uniform specified way of being able to verify that whatever machine you're on truly isn't in a tested state, that it really is safe, and that you can trust that whatever workloads you're putting there are going to be safe for the duration of their running.
See, Dave has a question.
Yeah, so what I just pasted in the chat, so I'll ask it verbally. For the KBS protocol, just because I see in the acknowledgements, if I found the right link to the protocol document for it, it has Thomas Vasati and Samuel Ortiz, both of whom are regular TAC attendees. And so my question is, if that's the protocol spec, have you guys considered submitting it to the RATS working group for review, and probably also the CCC attestation SIG, since I've not heard about it before, so.
I definitely think that's a good idea. It's something that would be good to have that finalized and unified, like you're saying, across the different things. And I know that the KBS structure currently, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but my understanding is that the KBS protocol actually does use the RATS architecture underneath it. So it would make sense.
So far, RATS. Yeah, so far RATS has not been chartered to specify a protocol, only things that can be used in protocols. And so, but I'd say at least submitting it for review to say, here is a protocol that we think meets all the requirements there, let us know if we're missing anything. And then the same thing in the CCC attestation SIG. I think that would be a very valuable discussion to have. So
fantastic.
Otherwise, RATS is like, well, here's some building blocks, but is anybody actually using them in a protocol? And RATS doesn't have anything to cite right now to say yes. And if the KBS is certainly using RATS, then it'd be great to have something they can say yes, and here's a protocol that has actually used us so far. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it is sort of application specific to confidential containers. The original concept was that you would have a separate client plugin for each kind of key broker. So if you think about maybe what's available in Azure for credential storage, there's probably protocols there that maybe you would want to use the Azure key provider for your KBS. And so I don't know what the protocols in front of that look like.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's not in scope for RATS, right? Because attestation is used for so many different scenarios. There might be a different protocol for each one, right? Between confidential computing, and of course, RATS is not specific to confidential computing. But having a review says, the reference interactions models document was great. Thanks, Hank, because the protocol uses it. I'm just saying that that's a sort of discussion. So I know that there's a number of RATS people on the call here. So
I had a question as well, if I may.
Sure.
So you said that an attestation can be made to attest to the let's say safety of a machine. By machine, do you mean virtual machine, or do you mean host machine?
In this case, it would be a virtual machine or container running inside a sandbox. But
okay, that's fine. That's a huge relief. I thought I'd better check, because it's rather a very, very different a set of assurances. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question as well. Can I?
Please.
Okay, so is this a space where we might want to, for example, think about defining an API for interacting with verifiers, say, in a generic way, like specifying an open API document that describes the interaction model.
Separate from the KBS model as well, because usually when you think about attestation servers, the KBS, if you want to call it API or protocol, is separate from the verifier. Am I following you correctly?
Yeah, the KBS is more, an application flow that uses, an attestation verifier in order to realize some of the goals, right? Some of the security goals. But what I was thinking was, the building block, right, of a relying party or a tester talking to a verifier through a RESTful API, because as they said, we don't have that in RATS. We have an abstract interaction model document that says, describes a bit of the patterns that you could use, but there's no actual instantiation of that apart from, code bases like Verizon. Verizon has an API for that. But we would like really to bring that thing somewhere where that can be discussed in an open, in a more open fashion, and try and create something that works for everyone.
Right, something a bit standard. I think that would be a good idea.
Okay, so I will interact with you in the near future on this. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you. That's about it from my end. Larry, did you have anything you would like to add?
No, I don't believe so. We'll definitely take these action items and move forward with them, but wanted to bring this up as kind of a proposal, and we'd like to, hopefully move forward and beginning the process for working towards incubation and all that good stuff. So
That's what I was just going to ask. Is this something that you're planning to submit for the sandbox stage into the CCC? Is this already part of some other organization like CNCF? What's the current status as far as
first sandbox into the CCC? Yes.
Awesome. No, I would definitely support that. You just have to fill out the template form and sign the forms and stuff. But from what I've seen so far, this would be an awesome sandbox project. Thank you.
100% agree. Yeah. And what's more, as it's, if I take this as a KPI, getting at least one project in my first 6 months, then I can take this one. So that's fantastic. It sounds very good.
If it comes into the CCC, which I'm going to sort of branch predict, that says when it becomes part of the CCC, one of the things that the CCC would then assign a mentor person. But one of the things that the CCC may want to discuss here, which we had this conversation in the terminology white paper, and in the terminology white paper, which vendor TE implementations claim to support confidential computing under our definition. We had this little discussion here. I'm just observing like SNP is certainly in the white paper, SEV is not. I think TDX is, and so on. And so as far as what we would highlight, if this was under the CCC, we might want to highlight SNP more than SEV.
That's fine.
And same thing with any other technologies that are in the white paper, highlighting things that are in the white paper over things that aren't. And that's only because the CCC doesn't take an official position, even if you claim to support them, right? Because the coming in a sandbox just means you have to say that you're promoting confidential computing, right? And promoting confidential computing means you're actually encouraging people to use the things that we all agree are confidential computing. And as long as you're promoting them, then I think it's fine. So
it may, of course, be that by SEV you mean SEV SNP. It's sometimes.
I'm looking at the first paragraph there. It says SEV parentheses and SNP, which says they're two different things. Okay. But you're going to lump SNP as under SEV as a whole and just say we're going to support all of SEV, as opposed to if you pivot it to say,
we support SEV SNP. Yeah, exactly. I think it's very much worth clarifying that. Yeah.
And the same thing may be true for anything else, right? Like if it was, if you start supporting RISC-V or whatever, just making sure that you're using the terms that we're using in the right paper as far as what you're highlighting and evangelizing. But otherwise, the project itself looks great. So thanks.
Understood. Thank you.
And since Dave brings that up, you've got ARM on there as well. Have you got some traction with ARM already? Or is that sort of forward looking?
That's a bit
the V9 realms.
We played around, but nothing that we say we fully support yet.
Sure. And maybe more a question for Thomas. Do you typically refer to ARM CCA or ARM realms? I've been referring to CCA, but then I hear other people say realms. So I'm not
Yeah,
sure
our
what-
terminology white paper uses CCA.
Yes, we have CCA for that.
I can change that.
But you know, it's marketing stuff. Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, I don't mean it for a clarification for your website, just for my own.
Okay.
I may be wrong. We should check with an armed person if you have on the call, but I think a realm is the equivalent of an enclave in the same way that CCA is equivalent to SGX. I may be getting it wrong, but that is my understanding.
It's a bit more complex than that, you know.
Okay, fine. I'll shut up. And anyway, let's clarify it and do it in a way which is correct and not what I say. So that's good. Sorry.
I just wanted to jump in here real quick on the project formation and proposal. Yeah, of course, you need to fill out the paperwork for the TAC, but please involve me for getting the umbrella, the CCC umbrella and sub-project stuff flowing properly in the Linux Foundation.
Sure thing.
I put my,
reach out to you after this?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Do you mind if I reach out to you after this meeting for that?
Yeah, absolutely. And my email address is in chat.
Yep, thank you.
I'm also going to claim that if this moves forward, this also helps us satisfy our cross-organizational goals, because this project helps serve the CNCF COCO.
On the topic of those goals, I wonder if there should be interaction encouraged between Verti and Verizon.
Yeah, I see.
So, for example, KBS is an attestation protocol. Verizon is an implementation that lets people do attestation protocols. It seems to me like there's a point of contact between them.
Absolutely, yes. We should really talk.
Yes.
All right, well, thanks again to the presenters. And I think we are ready to move on, unless anybody had any trailing questions.
Maybe just one last thing, and I can throw it in there, but the Verti organization is currently active in Matrix on Element. So we can throw that in there if anyone would like to reach out to us directly.
I just joined. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Could you expound on that a bit? I'm not familiar with.
It's basically #Verti. If you have a Matrix account, you can search for it and you can join it, right?
Yeah, it's just another chatting or communication platform. It's similar to Slack. So.
Oh, I see. It's another open source organization or something. Okay.
It's also an open source organization, matrix.org.
Okay. But not a governance sort of thing from their perspective. It's just that's a communication mechanism. So
there is an organization, but Matrix is the general name of the set of protocols and clients and servers, and if you go #Verti is a room basically under that.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. So we will move into action items shortly. I want to make sure that Dave gets an opportunity to bring something up before then, though. Let's see here. So this is for planning of our next meeting, Dave, before we lose people.
No, this was, I messaged Dan saying, can I bring up under any other business? This was triggered by Mike. You mentioned that you were going to be in Vancouver next week at the Open Source Summit. Yep. And if anybody was going to be there. And so I just wanted to see before everybody drops off who would actually be in Vancouver next week. And also wanted to highlight, so one of the things that's co-located with the Open Source Summit in Vancouver is the LSF BPF conference is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. In the BPF track of that meeting, those of you may remember, many of you may remember, I gave a tech talk about the relationship between BPF and confidential computing. I am giving that talk on Wednesday at the BPF track at LSFM and BPF. And so I will be in Vancouver physically. Just wanted to highlight that, but just wanted to ask who else is going to be in Vancouver next week? Is there time, if people are there earlier in the week, then, you know, maybe we could do a lunch or something like that. So just wanted to see who
And I would
was
also add that the Linux Security Summit is also co-located and happening at the same time. And someone, I think from Huawei, is giving a talk which includes the words confidential computing. So it might be worth having a look.
So if there are talks or whatever, then maybe we can post the specific confidential computing related talks to the TAC list. Since I can post the time of mine, but I think LSFM and BPF is like an invitation only. You got to have an invite to the overall conference, right? It's multi-track or whatever, but you have to be registered for it. So you can't just come because you showed up there. But maybe there is a facility. I think maybe last year there was some facility that if you were at Open Source Summit, then you could like be cross-registered and just come in both directions. I'm not sure. Don't know if somebody else knows, but is anybody else going to be in
LSS
Vancouver?
is a separate one. You have to
okay.
do specific.
So is anybody else going to be in Vancouver sometime next week besides Mike and me? No? Okay. All right. In that case, I can just coordinate with you, Mike, to see when you arrive and when I leave. So
sounds good.
All right. Thanks.
I know Mr. Wallace is going to be there and other people too.
The Open Source Summit ones, are those virtual if people aren't going to travel? Are there talks that you can just get online even if you have to register?
Some of them are. I don't know if it's true for all of them.
Okay, well, the ones that would be relevant here would be anything related to confidential computing, whether they're going to be streamed as well. So let's see if we can find out and post it to the TAC list if we do. So, okay, thanks, Dan, for giving me a minute.
Thanks for bringing it up. All right, I will bring the agenda back up again. So we are into the action item review, and I'm pretty excited about the first one. Kurt, would you like to update us on it?
Oh my gosh, yes. I finally was able to, basically I just punted because I got tired of messing with all the tools that did the conversion and trying to get this converted and getting that converted. And so I just sat down and literally cut and paste the document into a new markdown document and went through and hand formatted everything. I checked in, we did not have the second drawing that I could find anywhere. So I did actually I did a screenshot and checked that into our root directory, which in governance, which I will be happy to, once everybody's happy with this pull request for this document, I will move those into the new directory that I created for the analysis paper. This is the analysis paper. I put done on here and I thought, woohoo, I'm done. And then I realized we do also have the hardware-based TEE. And so I had a question about that. If I'd be happy to go through, I'm kind of good at it now, and basically scrape that document and stuff it into a markdown so that we have that in an editable format as well. So how does everybody feel about that?
So let's take these one by one. So first of all, thanks for doing the brute force effort on the TAC white paper. For the first review, I'd encourage people to focus less on formatting because it's going to be reformatted every time it's put into a PDF, and more on making sure that the verbiage is accurate. How we will use this going forward is if we have to update the definition of confidential computing like we just did in the fall, we want to be able to have that in a commit record. So please people to go over the document with a fine-toothed comb, looking for correct wording as is published today. Let's not try to simultaneously update things that may have been better worded. And then say again which document you were just suggesting, Kurt.
Oh, it's the so we have 3 CCC generated white papers on the CCC website. One is there's actually 4, but one is the research report. The 3 generated papers we have are analysis, terminology, and then the hardware TEE paper. And so we now have
I think you mean technical analysis, but that's the one you just did, right? Or which one?
Right. Yeah,
That's
the
what I'm thinking.
analysis paper, that was one of them. And the last one here is the hardware TE. I may be misspeaking.
That's the outreach. That's the outreach white paper.
Oh, that's outreach. Okay.
So good question, but you should ask outreach for that one.
Okay, will do.
So we have two, which is the terminology one and the TAC white paper. So,
Okay, well then, once that PR is reviewed and merged, then this one will be done. Yay.
Wonderful. Thanks again for that. So the second one was about incubation requirements that Howard put up. Well, I guess not so much about incubation requirements as much as just the general nature of what Sandbox is, I think. Right? That's what this one should. So this one is really about Sandbox, and Howard's put in some more text about why it's advantageous to come in at the Sandbox level based on his exposure to interested projects that he's encountered. So this has been hanging out there for a while, so I'm gonna ask that we wind up discussion on that between now and the next meeting. Separately, there's a discussion about adding additional benefits for later stage projects. So I'm going to actually, instead of saying pending, I'm going to ask the people treat this separately. So we can get PR number 160 closed out without needing to drag it out over a few weeks of additional discussion. Pretty good with that? All right, we already covered gramming earlier, so we'll come back with the, there's a few loose ends on the funding that I've got some action items for. So the next one here is, it's important to have a cross-project security mailing list. So whenever there's common vulnerabilities, there's a private channel for the projects to discuss those in and be notified of them. And Kurt previously created this list and had reached out to mentors and maintainers. The goal is to get one maintainer from each of the active projects. Do you know who we are lacking there, Kurt?
I have not checked lately. I can do that in real time here quickly, hopefully. Quickly, hopefully.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I will just sort of mark as complete this aspect of the outbound education goals. We wanted to get somebody from that sub-team to come into the TAC, give us an update. So we got that update. There will, of course, be ongoing action items throughout the rest of the year for that, as well as the rest of the topic areas. Kurt's also been working on updating some of the other material that is in our standing deck here, and that's what several of these refer to.
Yeah, so so Thomas was volunteering for Veracruz. I'm looking at the list, and there's actually no one in the list that have added themselves. So if Thomas has volunteered, so does that mean Thomas has talked to her? Or
No,
has
because I reached out to Derek and Matthias. I thought they had subscribed to the list, but I didn't follow up on that because I don't have visibility on the list. So if you say they haven't subscribed, I will check back with them.
Okay. Yeah,
and that's the same thing for Open Enclave with Radhika.
And Thomas, who was that for?
Either Derek Miller or Matthias Brossard.
the right spelling, Thomas? Do you know?
With a TH, Matthias. Matthias. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, Thomas.
And Dave, Radhika was going to be the person on the list, or Radhika took the action?
I'd reached out to Radhika and she didn't give me any other name. And so if nobody has joined yet, then I would say put Radhika on there until she designates somebody else. Because by default, she's like the release manager. So that's a good default person for security.
Okay. And then can you help me with the spelling?
DH instead of HD.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So Kurt, probably the most efficient use of your time is just to hit the TAC list again and ask one maintainer of each active project to subscribe to that list. And then I can try to poke people in the background using that note.
Will do. And I'll take that as an action.
And then can you clarify for me the image situation here on the one that I have highlighted? Kurt.
Oh, yeah, so that was the, yes. Okay, so that referred to the Venn diagram that was actually in that paper. We also have that pushed. Actually, the related terminology is one of the two images that were in that white paper, and I captured the other one and also pushed it. That's what I was trying to say there. The other image was referred to an attack using the power, like power fluctuation. And so I also grabbed that and stuck that in the same place in the main directory. Was that a comment?
Thanks. No, that was Mike adjusting his desk.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I wasn't mute. So that wasn't Dave. Here I
am. Standing desk. I love those. Okay.
Yep, I've been sitting down too long today.
Yep. And I think we've basically covered the rest of these. So we'll go to the board with the websites, funding, and we are done with this last one. Or no?
Yeah, really the last three were kind of all on the same subject, so yeah.
Right, so we can clear those up offline for people. Okay, down to the last 15 or so minutes here. I think the next thing we want to do is go into the planning for the next meeting. So 2 weeks out will bring us to the 28th, is that right?
18th.
18th. Thank you. So why don't we try to get, we'll see if Nick and I can get together before then, and we'll talk about the D&I goals. Say that is the one that we haven't heard from. So we heard Lily. Have we had discussion about, I mean, we've had a lot of progression discussion recently. Oh yeah, so we did have Howard come in, so I think we've kind of done an update on number 2. And then we had an update from Mark already on the GRC SIG for the 3rd one, and then we just heard on 4th, so yeah. It will be Nick and I at the next meeting. So I will try to get on Nick's schedule. And then who are we needing? We need an update from
Well, we deferred, yeah, we deferred attestation SIG.
Yep. So we will take that next time. And for our
Sorry to interrupt. So that means that the Verizon annual report is shifted by a couple of weeks, right? If we take in attestation next time.
it doesn't have to be. If you're all ready to go and you would like to get that done, we can do that probably as a tech talk if we don't have one scheduled.
No, there's no problem for us. Is we have we are okay with shifting 2 weeks. It's just to understand whether we wanted to cluster the two together or we wanted to have one at a time.
Yeah. So as I'm looking at the calendar, Thor, are you still available on the 18th for giving us a tech talk on Keyline?
Yeah, I can give on the 18th a short introduction into Keylime and what we are currently doing and what we are planning to do. But if the schedule moves, it's also fine to move it 2 weeks later, if that's easier, because I still also have university at that time. So it works either ways. So either on the 1st of June or on the 18th.
I propose we keep Keyline on the 18th and we move Verizon on the 1st of June if it's okay for everyone.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Or are you done with school by the 1st of June?
It's just wrapping up currently, so it would be fine to move it back, but it's also I can also do it on the 18th. That shouldn't be an issue. So.
Okay. So
we're planning attestation, Keyline, and TAC goals for matured community. Is that correct?
Yes. So this would become Keyline. Oh, sorry, it's one word, right? And we will shift Verizon out to June 1, right?
So just out of interest, how much about TPM-based attestation was generally talked in the past? So should I give a general primer on that again, or should we start directly on more the higher level stuff, what Keyline does?
Opinions from anyone on that?
We had an intro on TPM at this attestation SIG, but this audience is not necessarily the same. So maybe a quick recap on TPM.
I don't think it'll do any harm, bit of a recap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agree. This is a wider audience where the audience of this meeting is not just attestation experts, and so having an overview would be great.
Okay, then I will also add that.
Yes, typically, just for some context for you two, we exclude TPM from our definition of confidential computing, but it is a related technology in all these topics like attestation and do we declare it, or not do we declare it, but TPM I think is considered itself a trusted execution environment.
Oh no, it's very much not considered a trusted execution environment. It's explicitly excluded from trusted execution environment list.
So
the point is it's a separate processor, and as we can talk about next time, there may be ways to use a separate processor to do attestation of a TE in a different processor. Those are interesting discussions we can have next week. So
absolutely, yeah. No, I'm not trying to be negative here. Just it's one of those we very carefully exclude it for very good reasons, because it's useful for other types of things and alongside. So
yeah, TPM is more passive and the TE is more active.
We can do that talk next week.
No, looking forward to it already. Next time, it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one.
This is the teaser.
Okay, well, I think that brings us to the end of business for today. Did anybody have any other topics that they were hoping to have addressed?
either for next meeting or for the meeting after that, I think we should have the graduation stage requirements discussion.
Good catch.
Maybe because Grameen actually wants to get there.
Yes. Right. So I guess that will also facilitate if Nick and I can't discuss before then we will want to bring that up under progression. So
I would just add, if anyone has anything they want to talk to me about, any ideas, do please get in touch. Larry has already got in touch via LinkedIn. You can do that way, or via email, or whatever you like. I'm on Matrix as well, as we kind of discussed already. So yeah, I'd love to speak to you folks, and I know a number of you already, but there've been more since I last got involved. So that's great.
Great.
So Dan, if you want to assign the graduation stage requirements to me to do a slide or two on to provide background, then I could take that as an action item.
I would love to give that to you.
Because I think out of the people on the call, a lot of the individuals have turned over. I think Mike and I are the only ones that jump right out at me as being part of the original discussion. So
yeah, I mean, Wally was involved too, but
no, I mean people on the call right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sure.
Most of their people, there's been a turnover in who the company rep is. So
yeah,
or who the active attendees are anyway.
Fantastic. All right. Well, everybody, you get about 9 minutes back before you have to go sit down in front of your computer again.
Works. Thanks, folks. Good to be back. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
And Kurt and Dan, if you can send me a reminder a couple days before that, then I will try to get some slides to you. But I may not, since I'll be at the conference next week, it may not be until the beginning of the week after next that I'll actually get to doing the slides for it. Because I got to dig up the old feedback from 2019. So I got to like search through the archives to find the feedback from Mike and me and Simon and folks on the graduation stage requirements. They were filed, but we never actually got to discussing them. So I got to look up what they are to create the slides. So it is a little time consuming. And I won't have time to do that until I get 2 Mondays away. So.
Yeah, sounds
right.
good. I'll send a reminder when I go through the actions.
Wonderful. Thanks, Kurt. All right. Bye, folks.